Christmas, because the Christmas holiday in Fort Wayne was absolutely magical. Partly because you went there to enjoy it from where you lived. So you got to escape the responsibilities and duties of home and go to your birth home, but mainly because mom and dad made it so wonderful. Uh, Always we had a live tree. Always we had fires in the fireplace. Always mother, who believed so strongly and intrinsically in her Christian faith, knew that Christmas was the birth of Jesus, and she would call Christmas season the most magical time of the year. And because it was magic for her, it was magic for all of us. It was fabulous. And even after I was divorced, more so then, I would look forward most to driving into that driveway when we left Kansas City and drove it in one day, usually Dawn and I, pulling into that driveway, garage door opening, mom and dad rushing out, Merry Christmas, we're glad you're here, walking in that back door into the family room. There's that beautiful live tree, fire glowing in the fireplace, and fabulous food. Mother always had a wonderful chili that she made that I still can't make to this day. And Dad would have platters of my favorite stuff, which was German sausages and cheeses back when Fort Wayne was still a pretty much center of Germanic culture and had all kinds of local meat markets and bakeries and stuff. And it was just fabulous. It was like Ideal magazine. So all of that occurred year after year after year. We didn't deserve it, but it was wonderful. Always we went to church on Christmas Eve, and it was a wonderful service. I still try to find churches that duplicate that kind of Christmas Eve service with candles and carols and lessons. And we would come home. We would have a little buffet before we went, and Mom's Christmas punch. Then we'd come home, and if we were lucky and the snow had fallen, we'd drive around town looking at the decorated Christmas tree lights and stuff around town, and then come home and have some cookies and punch and open one present and then go to bed and wait till the next morning for the main opening. And the tradition in the family, which drives every other person I know crazy, was open packages as slowly as possible so that you could make the thrill and the pleasure of the day last longer. And this was Mother's philosophy, and that's what we like too. Nobody ever objected. So, each present went to each person, and you oohed and awed and opened it and enjoyed it. Oftentimes, of course, we'd break for brunch or lunch and continue into mid-afternoon. That pattern got broken up a little bit after I was divorced and came back, because Aunt Vivian would always have us over for a lunch at her house on Christmas Day. So we'd have to be there at 12:30 or 1. And it took me a long time to get up in the mornings. So we were often rushing Christmas, or we would save some for after lunch to come back to. Now, I know when Don married Greer and he entered the family, it drove him crazy, because his family tradition was everybody rushed in, grabbed their packages, and opened them up. So we conditioned him for a few years, and he did pretty well. And then Dawn and Greer were divorced, and Dawn married Randall, and Randall is even worse. Worse. His one bad trait. So we've not gotten the Christmases strung out all day like we used to. I've adjusted somewhat. Um, ooh. No, it might have been Christmas of 64. Because I met him in the fall, but I didn't start dating him until April 10th, Joan Horton's birthday. So at any rate, it's probably that
Following
second
Christmas.
And as he had begun dating a disabled woman, his mother had fits. She could not deal with it. Just couldn't deal with it in any way. And she secretly wrote a letter to one of these pop psychologist columnists. And when Roger got home, I really wanted him to come for Christmas, and he needed to go home, he said. So he went home, and I went off to Fort Wayne that Christmas of 64 at Christmas break from the University of Illinois. When he got home, he found a letter to his mother from this psychologist saying something about her son was obviously damaged in some way, and perhaps she could get him interested in more normal relationships with able-bodied people or something very insulting. Roger was furious. He turned around. He wasn't supposed to have seen this letter. He turned around, I think, and took his suitcase and left. Now, I didn't know this till later because I had gone on home and we were getting ready to go to church for Christmas Eve, and I was just so wishing Roger was going to be with me for that Christmas Eve, and he wasn't and couldn't be. And we went to church, and it was a nice snowy evening, Christmassy type evening, and we got parked, got out, went into the narthex, and there in front of me was Roger standing in the back of the church waiting for us to show up. I about died. It was like total magic. Could not believe it. And we had then the most wonderful Christmas you could imagine. But he told me, I said, well, how on earth did you ever find this? And the church, there he was. He said he had just gotten on the train. He'd found out the train times, and he remembered the name of the line, and he remembered vaguely that it let him off someplace not too far from the church. So he got on the train, and it let him off like an hour before he knew the church service started, and he walked. I don't remember how he knew which way to go. We had to ask. He walked in that cold weather from the train station, probably 6 or 8 blocks to the church. It was a downtown church, and stood around in the narthex waiting for us to show up. So I swear that was the most special Christmas I can ever remember having. It was great.
How long
Perfect
did it
Christmas.
last?
Well, he was there 2 weeks, 2 or 3
2
weeks.
weeks. Wow.
Something. We had a 2 to 3 week break from school in those days. So